The moto world is holding its breath. In just 2 weeks, Pedro Acosta went from the sport's brightest rookie to the center of a controversy, with Ducati fans fuming and Marc Marquez supporters sharpening their knives. His remarks after Sachsenring were a clean hit on Marquez's legacy and Ducati's vision. And now before the Austrian GP, Acosta has finally spoken again, but instead of cooling the fire, his words poured gasoline straight onto it. Inside KTM's fortress in Mattighofen, Austria, the press room feels more like a courtroom. Camera shutters fire like machine guns, capturing every flicker of Acosta's expression, the man who scorched the headlines since flanked by his team boss and manager. Hands clasped, eyes locked on the table. The tension is so thick, even the air seems to weigh more. Everyone here knows this is not just another interview, this is the moment that could define his season. The rookie starts soft, voice low, posture humble. I want to apologize to Marc, Ducati, and everyone who was offended. Heads nod, pens scribble, and for a fleeting second, it seems the storm might finally pass. But then, mid-sentence, his tone sharpens like a blade. I also want to clarify this is my view as a rider who wants this sport to move forward for everyone, not just for one big name. In one breath, the apology transforms into a challenge. Journalists trade glances, their instincts kicking in. Was that contrition or defiance wrapped in polite words? The question barely hangs before a reporter asks if he regrets what he said, or just that it went viral. Acosta doesn't blink. I regret the impact, that it offended many people. But every rider has the right to speak. Murmurs ripple across the room. Some see courage. Others see arrogance dressed as honesty. When Ducati's Davide Tardozzi responds later that day, the temperature has risen again. His voice is measured, his smile faint, but the edge is unmistakable. We appreciate that he spoke and apologized, but the public can judge his sincerity. One message is clear between the lines: Ducati isn't buying the peace offering, and they're not ready to forgive. The Austria GP just became more than a race. It's a battlefield. The moto world is shaking once again, after nearly 2 weeks in the spotlight for comments that directly jab Marc Marquez and Ducati's development strategy. Pedro Acosta has finally stepped forward to offer clarification. Yet instead of calming the storm, his move has sparked a fresh chapter in the heated off-track drama. Why has Acosta's clarification ignited a new wave of controversy ahead of the 2025 Austrian GP? Instead of easing tensions, let's break it down. A week before the Austrian GP at the Red Bull Ring, the atmosphere at KTM headquarters in Mattighofen, Austria, suddenly turned tense. In the press room usually reserved for celebrating the team's triumphs, camera lenses and piercing gazes from journalists were now locked onto one man, Pedro Acosta. Seated between team manager Francesco Guidotti on his right and his personal manager on his left, Acosta looked uneasy. He shifted in his seat, stared at the table, and took long breaths. When the microphones began recording every word, he started speaking softly, almost as if trying to calm the tempest he had stirred. I know what I said as Sachsenring became a big topic. I want to apologize to Marc, Ducati, and everyone who was offended, he said, bowing his head as if to show remorse. But that calm didn't last long. As soon as he moved into the following sentence, his tone changed. His eyes sharpened, almost challenging. But I also want to clarify this is my view as a rider who wants this sport to move forward for everyone, not just for one big name. For some journalists in the room, that moment erased any impression that Acosta was genuinely sorry. They noted that the young rider seemed standing his ground, albeit wrapped in softer language. When one reporter asked if he regretted the content of his comments or simply that they went viral, Acosta didn't hesitate. I regret the impact, how big it became, and that it offended many people. But every rider has the right to speak. That answer sparked murmurs among the media. Some saw it as the bravery of a rookie staying true to his beliefs. Others viewed it as a half-hearted apology of formality to quell criticism, without truly retracting the statement that had caused such a storm. Hours later, Ducati finally spoke through team manager Davide Tardozzi. His tone was measured yet firm, his words polite but loaded. We appreciate that he spoke and apologized, but the public can judge his sincerity for themselves, said Tardozzi, adding that Ducati focused on preparing for the next race, not off-track drama. To seasoned observers, though, those words were just the surface. Tardozzi's body language barely smiling, voice cold, signaled that Ducati's disappointment with Acosta was far from fading. Some crew members even avoided comment when asked about the incident, as if unwilling to stir an already simmering pot. For many in the paddock, this response was a sign that, while an apology had been made, the relationship between Acosta and Ducati was far from fully mended. In contrast to the lingering tension inside Ducati, Marc Marquez chose a cooling, diplomatic approach. Marquez spoke calmly in a special session at Ducati Corps headquarters in Borgo Panigale. Without irritation, "I'm not offended at all. Every rider has their own way of speaking. My focus is still on helping Ducati achieve our big goals this season," he said with a faint smile, as if to firmly shut the door on any drama that could disrupt team harmony. Not only that, Marquez even offered genuine praise for Pedro Acosta, despite the rookie's controversial remarks. "He's a talented young rider, and I'm sure he'll learn that in moto, results on the track and real actions matter far more than words off it," he said with an air of authority, as if delivering a lesson to the next generation. This elegance drew immediate praise from Ducati's top leadership. CEO Claudio Domenicali expressed his admiration to the media. "This is why we brought Marc to Ducati, not just as a fast rider, but as a true leader who can keep the team focused in the middle of a storm." For many observers, this statement proved that Marquez wasn't just winning races, he was winning the hearts of Ducati's decision makers. He was more than an on-track icon. He was a figure who could control internal tension, protect team morale, and project a professional image that reassured Ducati they had made the right choice in signing the 8-time world champion. Even though Pedro Acosta had issued a public apology, the rumor mill refused to die. Italian media kept digging, suggesting his words aligned with the views of Valentino Rossi, the moto legend, said to still hold personal tension with Marc Marquez since the infamous 2015 Sepang incident. Speculation intensified when Sky Sport suggested Acosta had deliberately avoided fully retracting his statement, perhaps to preserve his relationship with Rossi. Whispers even emerged that the doctor might one day recruit the young rider into his VR46 team, a move that could reshape Moto's power balance. Then came another spark to time Moto world. Champion Casey Stoner weighed in, turning the paddock temperature up a notch. He claimed he could detect a familiar tone in Acosta's recent comments if Valentino's involved. Ducati has every reason to evaluate their relationship with VR46, Stoner said firmly to him. History had shown that the influence of a figure as prominent as Rossi could affect a team's internal dynamics, especially when unresolved personal tensions were in play. Stoner warned Ducati not to let their guard down, reminding them that a factory team must ensure all satellite outfits align with the company's greater vision and not be used as political tools that could undermine the main squad's stability. In his view, internal unity was Ducati's greatest weapon in this fierce season, and any small crack could quickly grow into a significant problem if not addressed early. This drama adds extra spice ahead of battle at the Red Bull Ring track, known for heavy braking zones, long straights, and prime overtaking opportunities where wheel-to-wheel duels often become heart-pounding spectacles. Many believe this is the perfect stage for Marc Marquez to deliver his answer on track to all the controversy swirling around him, cementing his reputation as a rider who speaks with actions, not words. Within Ducati, support for Marquez remains rock solid, with no visible fractures. The factory squad appears united in placing the Spaniard as the spearhead of their title assault, even adjusting strategies to maximize his chances. Meanwhile, KTM is on high alert, working to keep Pedro Acosta laser-focused, ensuring the sensational rookie doesn't get drawn into more verbal skirmishes that could harm his concentration. At such a crucial moment for KTM, the Austrian GP isn't just a home race, it's a stage to prove Acosta can stay razor-sharp under the brightest of spotlights. The 2025 moto season still has many rounds, but this off-track saga proves the fight isn't measured by speed alone. Mental toughness, internal politics, and emotional control are just as decisive. Marquez has repeatedly shown that he can survive pressure and emerge victorious. Now the public waits for the equally important answer: can Pedro Acosta do the same, under the weight of expectation and intrigue swirling around him? Or will he be swallowed by the storm as the lights go out? Share your thoughts below. As the countdown to Sunday's lights out ticked away, the tension in the paddock felt almost cinematic. Every glance, every whispered conversation hinting at deeper currents beneath the public smiles. On Friday's FP1, All eyes locked on the moment Acosta and Marquez rolled out of pit lane within seconds of each other. It wasn't planned, but the symbolism was impossible to miss. The rookie who had shaken the hornet's nest now sharing the same patch of tarmac with the man at the eye of the storm. For the first few laps, they kept their distance. Then, halfway through the session, the timing screens lit up Marquez behind Acosta by just 0.2 seconds, both pushing hard through the Red Bull Ring's turn for braking zone. The cameras caught it all, Acosta glancing over his shoulder, Marquez closing in, the Ducati's front wheel almost kissing the KTM's rear tire. The paddock erupted not because an overtake happened, but because both men seemed to know that the psychological game had just moved from press conferences to the racetrack. By the time FP2 wrapped, Marquez was fastest overall, with Acosta slotting in the third. In the post-session interviews, Marquez's grin was razor sharp. Pedro's quick. "That's good for the sport," he said, pausing just long enough to make the silence feel loaded before adding, "But Sundays are a different story." Acosta's reply was equally pointed. "I respect Mark, but I'm here to race him, not admire him." Saturday's qualifying promised fireworks if they ended up side by side on the grid. The opening lap on Sunday could become one of the defining images of the 2025 season, not just for the racing, but for the collision of eras, egos, and expectations, and somewhere in the shadows of the paddock, the whispers about Rossi's influence, Ducati's internal politics, and Casey Stoner's warnings continued to swirl. The Austrian GP was no longer just a home race for KTM, it was a crucible, ready to forge or shatter reputations under the unforgiving glare of the Red Bull Ring's summer sun.